In this video, we're going to renovate this 50-year-old RV in 50 days. I hope you enjoy. My friend Amos and I just bought this 1973 GMC motorhome from Marketplace near Chicago. Body and frame were in good shape, but the engine was spotty and the interior needed a ton of work. And with winter setting in, we were only going to have 50 days to get this thing on the road. So with no time to lose, we got started by clearing out the interior. And to prep for a new hardwood floor, we ripped up all the cheap carpet. With our flooring removed, it should have been safe to start priming the walls for paint, but unfortunately, we live in Wisconsin. So at a high of 15 degrees Fahrenheit, we had to get creative to keep our RV warm enough for the paint to dry. But with the paint literally freezing on the walls, we'd have to wait for a warmer day. So after removing the refrigerator out of spite, we moved on to tackle our new floor. To get started on the sublayer, we picked up some plywood sheets and cookie cut each piece to its correct size. We then glued down the underside with caulk and screwed them into place. With our subfloor finally secured, we were ready to move on to the main floor. So first, we took a grinder and cleaned up all the high spots. Then, we picked up this waterproof vinyl flooring and measured out the pieces, cutting them to size to make sure they would all fit properly. And after our friend Michael spread glue across the plywood, we let it set and were ready to go. So, starting at the door, we laid down each piece, fitting them snugly into place, and making sure to push down firmly to prevent any gaps between our boards. Once all the pieces were tight, we were literally ready to roll. We used a giant weighted roller and pressed it all into place. We let the glue set overnight and we're happy with this modern touch to our interior. As we moved on to our kitchen, we removed the existing countertop and cleared out all the drawers. And after taking the dimensions for a new one, we cut and epoxied our solid surface pieces together, clamping it down to let the epoxy cure overnight. The next day, we rounded out the edges and began sanding the top with 4 different grits, adding polish to shine it up. Then we set our sink and clamp mounts with silicone. Once cured, we drilled a hole and cut out the edges of the sink, smoothing it out with a sander and a final polish. We let that sink in and then set it into place. However, we noticed it didn't sit securely against the back wall due to the wood being rotted. So we tore it out and cut our new plywood into shape, securing it with screws and adhesive. With that issue resolved, we mounted our new faucet to the countertop. We also added a new attachment for the water lines and screwed them into place. The new countertop and the faucet looked great, but the crater caused by the missing fridge was begging for an overhaul. So we decided to open it up by demoing the wall. After removing the top section, it did give the interior a more open feel. However, our new mini fridge would need a little more space. So by unscrewing a few brackets, we were able to take out this bottom platform. With that out of the way, we removed the surrounding trim and found this questionable green carpet that definitely hadn't been cleaned since the 70s. After quickly tearing it out and sweeping up, we attempted to tape the loose wires out of the way. However, it didn't stick due to the cold, so we used some advanced techniques to keep it in place. With that done, we cut a new backing piece and made a notch for the wires. We tried adding expanding foam to stabilize our board, but the cold prevented it from expanding. So after turning on our heater, we set our backing board in place and hoped for the best. We repeated the process for the other wall and installed a second board. With our backing now complete, we could add a brace for our second countertop. Then we set it in place and realized we had made a huge mistake. We had planned for it to be a high countertop, but it turned out significantly worse than we had envisioned. So we came back and dropped it down to be flush with the fridge. After fixing that issue, we reused our brackets and locked down our existing wall. And to reduce any gaps, we threw trim on either side of our opening and stapled it into place. For stabilization, we also added 2 support beams across the back with foam buffers to protect our fridge. And after reattaching our outlet, we connected these figure 8 mounts, which let us secure our countertop while also letting it sit flush. And to finalize this section, we plugged in the fridge and moved it into place. With both countertops done and our fridge locked in, things were really starting to look up for us. But with our RV suddenly refusing to start, it was time to pause on the interior and take a look at the engine. After seeing that our battery was bad, we threw in a new one, but our RV still wouldn't start. And after replacing the starter relay to no avail, we finally knew the starter was to blame. So first, we pushed Walter forward to get us away from the mud. Then Amos could crawl into the wheel well and get started. So using a ratchet, we loosened 2 bolts mounting the starter. And after removing the wires, we could pull it right off. Now to install the new starter, I held the weight from above while Amos installed it from below. And with the wiring secure, we turned the key and Walter was alive. However, we couldn't celebrate just yet as our engine was running a little rough. So we traced the issue back to the idle on the carburetor and set it to 2 psi using a screwdriver and a vacuum gauge. With the engine running smooth again, we were ready to roll and continue renovating. The next day, after noticing a very slight leak in our RV, we discovered this neglected aluminum that covered a hole in our roof. So after moving that out of the way, we picked up a new fan and set it into place. Now we were ready to caulk the edges and lock it down. To finish up, we connected the wiring and screwed on the cover. And with that sealed up tight, we got started on the backsplash. We went with this white subway tile and began locking our pieces together. And upon reaching the corner, we grabbed a scribe to mark our piece. And after cutting it to size, we could fit them all into place. We then repeated the process on the other wall and resecured our outlet. With our interior coming along, we decided to finally tackle the master bedroom, and with the need to fit a longer mattress, we'd have to raise the platform. So we removed the carpet tiles and the headboard, which brought yet another web of wires to our attention. But with those put aside, we took off the plywood and made some braces to raise the platform. Now to even out the other end, we added 2 legs and extended our boards to support above the hatch. With that secured and our plywood reinstalled, our raised platform could now fit a full bed. We could now muscle the headboard back into place, and with the rear platform complete, we could now start construction on our front couch frame. However, to fit any regular size couch, we'll need it to be level with our front step, so we headed into the cold as our friend Elias attempted to make a fire for us. And with a cozy flame, we measured and cut our boards. But before we could connect them, we made our notches and checked the fit. And with our cuts correct, we screwed our frame together. Now we could grab our vintage couch and trim the end to size. And once everything was in place, we screwed it to our frame and locked it to the cabinet. Finally, to finish it all off, we brought in our cushions and mattress, and after giving them a test, we could finally say that the RV was livable. After returning the next day, we realized these blinds had to go, so we threw them out and set them ablaze, which shielded us from the bitter cold. And as the weather worsened, we got the measurements for the new blinds. We had intended to make our own, but Talk Blind came through and sent us these awesome over-the-top electric blinds. However, after installing the first one, we realized our rounded walls would be a problem. So to fix this, we picked up some plastic fence post covers and cut them into 4ths. We could then outline the curve of the RV wall to make a template. With that done, we clamped each piece tightly to our jig. Then, to make sure they held shape, we heated them up to the correct temperature. Once they cooled, we notched each track to fit seamlessly onto each side of the blind, and after removing this tiny factory screw, we added a longer one to secure them to the blind. This did a great job of keeping the blinds in place, but we'll need to add a bottom piece as well, so we chopped a board to finish boxing in our frame. We hoped each blind would go this smoothly, but naturally nothing did, as we discovered our rear cabinets were blocking our blinds, so after removing the cabinet, we could properly install them. And finally, after finishing up the back, we used our remote to test them out. As our 50th day rapidly approached, we had to make sure the RV could safely road trip south, and with all our front gauges still out, we decided to consult the wiring diagram. But since this isn't something we understood well, we had our friend Matt help us troubleshoot. After ruling out our fuses, he checked the engine bay and discovered a loose clip to the heat gauge. With that snug, we could now monitor our engine temperature, but we'll still need to see how fast we're going. So, after scrounging around, Matt found the old speedo cable. However, with the original cruise control busted, we decided to bypass it and go directly into the transmission. Now we could finally check on our broken gas gauge, but since it always read full, we decided to leave it since we'd never run out of gas. Also relating to our fuel was the carburetor, which was not vacuuming properly and would need a full rebuild. Unfortunately, there are only a few people left that truly know these contraptions, but with luck on our side, we found a local legend. Sparky gets sent these old carburetors from all over the world, and he decided to cut us in on his 5-month wait list. As soon as he started tinkering, we knew we had the right man for the job. And after returning a few days later, we couldn't believe that this was our old carburetor. But before reinstalling it, we did a quick tune-up and changed our crusty spark plugs. We then connected all the new wires to our distributor cap, while also replacing the rotor and popping our cap back in place. Finally, after giving the engine block a quick clean, we could bolt the carburetor back on. Now, with working gauges and a healthy engine, we had some more faith in Walter for our journey to Florida. But since we'll be in cold climates for the start of our trip, we decided to pick up this diesel heater. And after finding a snug spot for it underneath the bed, we drilled 2 holes through the floor. Then we pushed our intake and exhaust through and screwed them to the underside of the RV. With those locked in, we could cut one more hole in the bed frame, which opened a path for our hot air. And after connecting the vent, we gave our new heater a test run. Once we came back to check on it, we were shocked to find heavy smoke. So we urgently checked under the bed and found our exhaust pipe burning up the floor. So we quickly turned off the heater and removed it, which unveiled the damage. Now, to remedy our mistake, we added some sheet metal to the hole. Then we covered the entire exhaust in heat wrap and reconnected it at a distance to the the bottom of the RV. After taking all the precautions, we turned it on, and with no signs of smoke, we moved on to our rusty central exhaust, which we covered with a chrome tip to raise the value. And to match, we finally went to reinstall our ladder. First, we lined up our brackets and added silicone to seal the holes. Then we could screw our ladder into place. And to finish it off, we added the top rail and connected them together. With that sturdy, it was time to reattach our bumper. But since we didn't trust ourselves to weld something so vital, we had a guy from Craigslist attach it for us. Now, to top off the back, we threw on this clean black wheel cover. With our final day upon us, we worked tirelessly to finish every last task, starting with the nest of hazardous wires along our ceiling. So we grabbed these aluminum tracks and countersunk some holes, screwing them into place and adding wooden blocks to fit the wires. Now, to polish up the interior, we caulked our subway tile and added miscellaneous trim all over the RV. With those on, we thought of another way to add some custom flair. So after removing the microwave, we could make a hole for our cord. Then we placed these sleek LED strip lights, hiding them with another thin piece of trim. Now, after putting our doorboards back on, we could finally reinstall our original table. And with that in place, our 50th day was officially done. So with our Florida road trip imminent, we put the tools down and stocked up Walter with tons of healthy food. And with our 2 bikes loaded up onto our trailer, we were ready to hit the road. But there's still a lot to do in the RV and a huge 2,000-mile road trip to survive. So make sure to like and subscribe to see future builds and travels. See you guys next time.